Hi everyone, this is Witnet Sprint Review for sprint number 40. We hold these meetings every 2 weeks on Fridays, just as we finished these sprints, which is one thing specific to the work methodology that we follow for the development of the Witnet related software. And in these reviews, we try to explain what were the goals for those 2 weeks and how we have been progressing, which are the new features, what to expect and during the next sprint, and so on. So without further ado, the sprint goals for this sprint were really focused on releasing the testnet 9 which will come really packed with new features, and mostly related with reporting data request errors and giving better feedback and better UX and getting everything ready for starting the well anticipated counting of blocks for the phase 2 of the testnet incentive programs. And in the area of Sheikah, the desktop wallet app, and also the IDE for data requests, mainly finishing the data request editor, which we will see a demo of later. And in other aspects, we had a huge amount of technical assessments. This is something that happens quite often, that we devote some sprints more into deciding how the next weeks are going to be like, and planning and making some assessments and taking some decisions. And then other sprints are more focused on executing those decisions. In this case, we had things to figure out regarding what we wanted to do with some specific parts of the collaterals features, and also about the block weights, how to weight transactions inside blocks, and so on.
Regarding the Witnet improvement proposals, we've been focusing on two main proposals, which are the active reputation set merkleization, which is needed to achieve a decentralized communication between Ethereum and Witnet. So what it means is that we're going to validate signatures coming from the active reputation set members from Witnet in Ethereum. And for that, we need to make sure that we have a way to validate that signature actually belongs to an active reputation set member. So in order to do that, what we do is, what the proposal proposes is merkleizing the active reputation set member keys, and then the bridge only needs to provide the Merkle path to lead into that root that was appended to the block to demonstrate that a particular signature came from an active reputation set member. The other proposal that we've been working on is weighting blocks and transactions. So one of our concerns was that the blockchain or the Witnet chain can grow at the moment unlimitedly, because there's no weight, no maximum block size, etc. So what we wanted to guarantee is a sustainable blockchain growth. And for that, we also model transactions set in such a way that we can predict, or we anticipate the computational effort and storage that they will create in the system. So as always, you have these two Witnet improvement proposals in the Witnet improvement proposals repository, and if you have any feedback, we're always welcome to provide it.
Well, as Alan said, the main goal for Sheikah during this sprint was finish the data request editor and have been focused on show the partial result of each operator when you click on try data request. And we also are able to show the errors that the wallet or the node report to Sheikah when there's some problem with any data entry point. We also have improved the Sheikah bundling. Now we have added Sheikah to the system tray, and when you close Sheikah, it closes directly. You can have running the wallet and Sheikah in the background, and then you can close it from the system tray. We also have set a minimum size for the Electron window, and we have disallowed the feature of import a wallet from a pre-lab Xbrief. And we also have made some UI improvements and you can change the amount of which you have clicking, or not changing the amount, you have the unit that it shows when you click on this amount.
Okay, in the note, we have a new funny feature for this sprint. That is, we have a new banner. The all states that were synced and live are renamed to almost synced and cycled, and you can see the new banner who looks like. One important new feature is that now in the node, if a node operator commits a write-on error when solving a request, it will not be a slice. It doesn't earn a reward and reputation, but it also doesn't lose the collateral and the half of its reputation. It is like a neutral state between commit a value or not commit that could get a reward if there are a radon error consensus. Also, to improve the memory footprint, there were some technical discussions about the collateral edge existence, and we conclude that a new proposal where only minted two shots could use it by the collaterals, and the widths that move to another identity cannot use for collaterals. Anyways, it will be tested in the future testnets, and we can check if it's a good improvement or not. So we also do improvements on click commands naming and in Docker usage. Now it's easier to modify the config files and to manage the master key, like importing and exporting the master key. And finally, we have under review, we include the active reputation set merkleization that Gorka speak before in the superblock structure to improve the bridge decentralization properties, and also the release of the new testnet that includes all that features and the ways that the transaction weight that Gorka explained before. And yeah, we can see the new testnet in the next week, so be prepared.
Right. So about smart contracts, we have been working on the active reputation set block relay, in particular in the proposed block function. That is a function called by bridge nodes that present and prove the superblock signed by active reputation set members. And so the inputs of that function are going to be the superblock arguments, which hash of the concatenation arguments are going to be signed by the members of the ARS. Then as an input, the signatures that are going to be aggregated and the public keys of those members. And the structure of the function is going to be, first of all, verify that those public keys are from members of the active reputation set. Then verify the signatures using BLS, and then count the votes of the superblocks that this is needed in case that more than one superblock is proposed for the same member. And then we have been working in the security audit. We published a post in Medium about the issues and the mitigation that we have done, and then you can find all the explanations. So please, if you're interested in that, take a look at the other post.
Okay, so at the end of each sprint, we like to close the chapter of the work we did. just taking a look of how well we work regarding the estimations we did. This is part of our agile methodology. And in this sprint, it looks not so good as it was, but in reality, we did a great job. I mean, the remaining issues that stayed in the backlog were those related to delivering the testnet 9 that was planned but was delivered during the sprint. And then, as we already mentioned, there were a lot of technical discussions that they are still in the review pipeline. The main idea is like they should be open for a significant amount of time to gather all the comments and all the reviews from all the community. Yeah, on the next slide. And normally, when there is an impediment, we like to highlight it. And during the sprint, we didn't estimate properly all the complexity regarding the technical discussions. They took longer as they should, or that we expected, but but we prefer to have do steady steps and don't rush any technical decision before being sure that we think is the right decision to move forward. Yep, that's it from my side.
So regarding community and outreach, we've had a really busy few weeks. Obviously, the start of the phase 2, which I will come on to in the next slide. But other than that, this week we attended Cognition X Tech Conference, which was based in London, but it was online. The team was in London. Adan, the CTO, presented Decentralized Oracles, the holy grail of Web 3.0 networks, which you can find on Discord. And I've included a link in these notes, which I'll share at the end of the sprint review. Also, Dr. CPU has made a proposal to start a block explorer tool, which Witnet's Block Explorer, which is obviously would be a huge component of the Witnet ecosystem. He's going to need help, so anybody that wishes to join in and help in any way, please check out the community tools channel on Discord, or find it in the community tools channel on Telegram, which I've included a link there, or reach out to him directly on Telegram. I've left his tag there, .cpu. So to give there's a bit of a confusion around Witnet IDs, I think. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of how we're using them. So as you can see, we've asked you to post your IDs today. This is the first time that we'll be allocating WIT, so congratulations to everyone here. You've all got 150 WIT, everybody that's put their WIT IDs in. The IDs will help us to track you on your contributions and efforts within the community over the coming months during phase 2. We'll also at some point ask you to sign your nodes with them, so we can track which ones you own. Now, obviously, no low effort contributions and chilling will be rewarded. We're not asking people to just go on Twitter and tweet as many as they can and use their IDs in that case. So the rule of thumb really is if there's something you've put significant effort into within the community, put your ID at the bottom of it, so that we can keep a track of who you are and make sure that you're rewarded for your efforts. So for example, if you're doing a GitHub pull request within the Witnet repository, if you do a video walkthrough, if you have an explicit task, such as attending the sprint review today, which we've announced on the announcement channels, those sort of things are great, and you should be doing that. Also, obviously, only one ID per person, and we'll be obviously making sure at the end with KYC that there's only one ID per person, and any duplicates won't be counted. So we'll be launching a scoreboard this week for phase 2. This will be released sometime later this week. It will help you keep track of all your phase 2 contributions. Obviously, mining and DAI rewards won't be included here at this point, although the mining will be included at the end. But this will be for contributions in marketing, writing, documentation, community support, things like attending events like today. And we'll also be releasing more tasks and events coming up in this coming sprint. So keep an eye on your emails and announcement channels for all of those. So without further ado, block counting, we are estimating to begin on Thursday. So tentative goal of the network update is this Thursday, 18th of June. It will probably be sometime late European afternoon to make sure that people in other parts of the world are, it's a good time for them. We'll be giving instructions on how to update your nodes, and obviously will coincide the network update with the start of block counting. Look out for the email in the coming week, in the coming days, that will be explaining the process and the mechanics and the expectations. We'll also be releasing a blog post to kind of go into more details about the about how we'll be allocating. But I'm good. Hello, am I back in again?
Yes, yeah, we lost you for a few seconds.
Okay, so first of all, it's worth noting you should expect things to break. I'll go back a minute and just say, yeah, so look out for an email in the coming week to explain the process and mechanics behind the node operation part of the program. So you should expect things to break. Obviously, Witnet is still in testnet. This is one of the main reasons we're running the testnet program, is to ensure that we find all the problems, we find all the challenges, and we address them before we reach mainnet. So thank you all for your patience. And if you have any issues, obviously reach out to us. It's important for us to know what's happening within the network and to be able to troubleshoot. We're here if you need us. And so to give a little bit of a detail on how we'll be allocating the WIT tokens for node operators. So this is all in the FAQs at the bottom of the testnet announcement page, the phase 2 announcement page. So the mainnet WITs allocated to each identity will be calculated pro rata based on the percentage of qualifying blocks that identities and identities nodes consolidates into the testnet blockchain. So what does this mean? So during the counting period, which will be starting this Thursday, until the point when we have to take the network down, or until the point when the phase 2 finishes, all of the qualifying blocks, so all of those that we have confirmation that they are mined by a node with an identity attached to it, which we will find out at the end of the program, will be awarded WIT. So for example, so if Jane runs 10 nodes on the Witnet testnet for the duration of the phase 2 program, and she registers all of those nodes to her Witnet ID, and she passes the KYC, over the course of the counting period, her 10 nodes, if they mint, say, 0.3% of all qualifying blocks, when the program finishes, she'll get 0.3% of all the qualifying blocks. So they're all the blocks that have an ID attached to them, that we know who they are, and that they're part of phase 2. I hope that makes sense. I'll be going into it more in the email, in the blog post in the coming week, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So just to reiterate, it's not WIT themselves, it's not testnet WIT themselves that will be add to your allocation of mainnet WIT. It's the number of blocks that your nodes consolidate into the network. Let me know if you have any questions on that. I'm here anytime, so just reach out to me at Thomas Witnet on Telegram if you're unclear about that.
Now we are having a demo, which is probably the part that we enjoy the most about the sprint reviews, and you will surely love. So today we will be demoing the new data request visual editor inside Sheikah, which is the Witnet desktop client that doubles as a wallet software and also as a creation tool for data requests, for creating data requests and sending them to the network, or then importing them in our Ethereum contracts and so on. So it will be Tomás presenting. Tomás, everything is ready on your side?
Yeah, I will share my
Great.
screen. Well,
okay.
I think you have to stop sharing.
Yes. Give me just a second. There you go.
Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, so in this demo, I'm going to show you the new Sheikah data request editor and how to compose a data request. Once you have created your wallet, you can go to the data request section, and from here you can import a data request or that you already have, or you can create a new one from scratch. We are going to create a new one from scratch to get the last Bitcoin block. First, we have to add the basic information for the template. For instance, we're going to write what? I think I have broke something with my computer. Demo effect. Sorry. Yeah, I think I have broke my computer. What? Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like my wallet has just crashed.
Oh.
Sorry for that. Just I will try to do it again.
Okay.
Demo effect. Okay, I'm running the node, and now I'm running the wallet again. Okay. I'm compiling Sheikah again. Okay. Yeah, I think now it's working. Okay, I will share my screen again.
Thanks, Tomás.
Okay. So, okay, we have created, to sum up, we have created a new template, and the first thing that we have to do is create or add information for the template. In this case, we are going to get the last Bitcoin block, so we can put Bitcoin hash, and the description could be get latest Bitcoin hash. In this case, we are not going to use any variable because we are not going to repeat any section, and we can. And the next step is choose our sources. Previously, I have choose 3 sources to do this data request. Remember that one of the most important steps of creating a data request is choose your sources wisely. And for this example, we are going to retrieve the blockchain info, Bitcoin chain, and blockchain. So the first thing is copy the URL for each blockchain and blockchain here. The three APIs returns the protocol is HTTP GET, and the content type they return is a JSON API. So we are going to leave the default values, and now we have our three sources, and the next step is edit the source scripts. Here we have the sources that we have just created, and we can see a help for next to each operator that we are going to add that will guide us through the process of create a data request. For the blockchain info API, we are not going to add any operator because it returns directly the block that we want. For Bitcoin exchange, we are going to parse the result as a JSON map, and then we want to get the hash. So we choose an operator get a string, and the key that we want to get is the hash. Next, for blockchain, we are going to need to access the data, and then we want the best block hash. So we only have to parse JSON as map. We add another operator, and we want to get a map with the key data, and finally get the string, which is last oh, sorry, it's best block hash. And we can ensure that our data requests are correct, trying the data request, and we get the partial result. I'm not sure if you can see the partial result.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we can see we get all the JSON from the Bitcoin chain, and then we get the string that gets the last hash. And now we have edit the source scripts. The next step is set the aggregator function. We are not going to set any filter for now, and we want to reduce all the information or the values received by the node. And remember that this result will be commit and reveal when all the witnesses commit their own result. We also can try the data request here and see that after apply the mode operator, the value we get is this one. And finally, we can set a filter here. We also want to kick out the outliers from the mode, and also reduce apply a reduce operator with the mode function. We can use try data request and see that I have it, and see that the final result that we expect to get into our smart contract before deploy the data request will be the result that we see here. And with this data request, we can save it or export it as a JSON that you could be able to import it again in any Sheikah, or you can directly deploy if you have funds. You can directly deploy in the testnet through Sheikah. So as Thomas said, we are starting the phase 2, and I encourage you to try to download Sheikah, try it, and compose your own data requests and deploy it to the testnet.
Cool. Can we see the thing about the units
Yeah, of course.
in the transaction view?
I'm
It's
not
in the same
sure
branch?
if I have any. I don't have any transaction because I have
Okay.
to delete all my wallet crashes.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I have to
yeah.
delete all the
Yeah.
information, and I don't have I don't import a wallet with funds.
Okay.
But I can show you that the amount of
that's-
WITs when you click here will change, and the amount will change accordingly to that.
Nice. Okay, going back to the slides. It's time for questions and answers. So today we have plenty. So let's go back to the first ones. Okay.
Dan, I've put them all in Telegram for you, so it's easy.
Thank you. Awesome. So first one, about whether current nodes are going to have some advantage over new nodes when all WITs and reputation are reset to 0 when the counting begins. So basically, the idea about resetting is giving no one an unfair head start, let's say, so that everyone can begin at the same time and make sure that everyone gets the same chance to get rewards in this stage. Also because that is the most similar scenario that we can try to, like, let's say, rehearse the actual mainnet launch. And this is also important because many things in the protocol depends on what your reputation, the reputation of your node is. So what's its past performance, and if we let's say respected what we have today, it would be very, very unequal in that state. So this is something that is going to happen with the reset. Everyone's nodes will go to 0 reputation and 0 balance. So you may be having this question about why would I start the node right now? Okay, basically it's all about getting it ready, getting familiar with how it works, so that from the reset on, you make sure that it will stay stable, and you will, let's say, maximize the amount of blocks that it will produce, and so that your rewards are as much as possible. In the same way, always take into account that the whole point of this program is testing the software, making sure that on mainnet we ship something as solid as possible. So the main point is not giving money away. Okay, it's something that we are happy to be able to do, but I'm saying this because I see this also as a great opportunity for everyone to get familiar with the testnet, so that you can also have some all the knowledge and all the tools and everything you need to be running nodes on the actual Witnet mainnet when it's released from day one. And I think that's something quite interesting for you. Next question. This one I think is for the brainy guys. Why ARS merkleization is needed? I understand that ARS, the active reputation set, is for starting identities that have been active in the last epochs, and this is a map of identities and a queue with active identities in each epoch. So what's the benefit of putting that into a Merkle tree and anchoring that into blocks or super blocks? That's a question for Claudia, Gorka, or Mario.
I can answer if so. Yeah, so essentially our main issue is that we cannot validate block headers that come from Witnet in an easy way in Ethereum. So in order to interact safely with Ethereum, we need block headers because those are at the end the ground truth against which we're going to compare whether a transaction happened or not, against we're going to check whether a transaction happened or not. So since we don't have proof of work mechanisms, we need to trust our own, let's say, asset, or the asset that we're using with it to actually come to consensus, which is reputation, right? So in that sense, the most effective way of transferring that reputation knowledge that the Witnet chain has to an Ethereum smart contract, in our vision, is to Merkleize the active reputation set, which is the status, a snapshot of how the reputation is at this point in time, and send it to Ethereum. And basically, with that, what we achieve is that the next block that is inserted into Ethereum has to be approved by a majority of members of that were part of the previous active reputation set. And in a way, we create a chain in Ethereum.
Great. Then someone asked about the possibility of moving one node from one machine to another easily. Yeah, that's something that is perfectly possible. You need to locate the path of the storage folder of your current node, which, if you didn't change anything, is the one by default. If you go to the docker run command in the documentation, in the guide that you followed for creating it, you can see where it is stored. Normally, it's a folder called .witnet in your home directory, in your VPS, or in your Raspberry, on whatever device you are running Witnet, and you can take that folder, move it into a different device, and then run the docker run command again, following the guide, and it will directly import your private key and import your the local chain and everything. That's the, let's say, like the most radical way to do it. But then, of course, as the chain grows, that folder could take quite a lot of space, some gigabytes. So maybe it's not the most convenient way to migrate one node from one device to another. It's great if you don't want to synchronize from scratch, because you can reuse the data from the chain data from the old node. But if you want only to migrate your identity, like moving your balance and your reputation from one node to another, what you can do is using the CLI. There's one command called master key export that will export your private key, the private master key of your node, and you can import that into a new node by simply creating a new node in a new device, in which, when you run the command, there's a flag for importing the key. Everything about this is in the guide, is in the documentation, and we will be updating it to account for some changes that are coming with the next release, in which, as Luis explained before, you can actually change the configuration file and import and export master keys in a much more convenient way. So everything will be actually simplified and much well documented. I think this will be super useful for everyone. So question 4 about our background and studies, and whether this info is on the website. We have actually quite diverse backgrounds. There's people who have studied mathematics, different in different types of engineers and so on, people that come from different industries like banking, like the aerospace sector. I come from the I've been working in the blockchain space since 2014, but before I used to work with other kinds of protocols, and in general open source software, people from more the entrepreneur area, so quite diverse indeed, which is, I think it's a huge strength. Question 5. Okay, next. Okay, on whether the Sheikah editor can be tried today.
Unfortunately, these features you can run it because I think there's a PR in the node in the Witnet Rush repository that has to be merged first, and once this is merged, it will be ready with the next release. That hopefully it will be next week. But if you want to try it now, you have to run Sheikah and compile it and compile your own node and use the branch in that is in the PR in GitHub.
Yeah,
but
it has just been merged, so it's on master now. But yeah, you need to compile your own node and compile your own Sheikah and run them together. But I think this was asked by Igor, so I think he knows how to do that, and probably can help anyone willing to.
Cool.
Okay. What would be the result if all the 3 sources would provide different data? Is there a way to set default responses or error? In this case, this is something that is very specific to the nature of the data and the data type that we are retrieving. In this case, we were retrieving strings because we were trying to do a request that somehow witnesses the last block in the Bitcoin blockchain. So when you have strings, you cannot make averages. You cannot even filter for using any criteria other than the mode. Basically, you take the result that is more frequent and any other result gets discarded. So what happens if you are requesting 3 different sources and each of those will give you a different results? There are no 2 sources that are in consensus between them. What we will get is actually an error stating exactly that there was a mode tie, let's say, that every single the algorithm couldn't tell which is the one, the most frequent one, couldn't decide what the result should be, and then you get that result. And if you are creating that request from Solidity, from Ethereum, and you're launching that request from Ethereum, what you get is something that you can perfectly manage. You get this error, and you can decide that if the result is an error, which is something that you can check, you need to do something like sending a new request or sending a new request to different sources or anything that makes sense in your particular use case. This is something very important because oracles and bringing data into smart contracts is all about determinism, basically making sure that your contract will have a resolution, even if not the most satisfactory. But more important than getting data into smart contracts is making sure that you get any data, even if not the one that you were expecting. Not wrong data, but an error is something perfectly okay, because sometimes things go wrong for reasons you are not to blame of, and for reasons that Witnet is not to blame for either, and basically because data sources fail or for anything else. And you get these sort of errors, and you can perfectly differentiate whether you are getting a result or you are getting an error. And then between the errors, you can perfectly tell between many different cases, and you can decide what to do in any particular case. Okay. Someone said that they have 32 gigabyte memory in their Raspberry Pi. I understand that's like a micro SD card for storage. How do I change it once blockchain size exceeds that size? Can I just move the files to a bigger size micro SD and start the node? Yes, basically yes, you can. You can normally I would install Raspbian or whatever distribution you are using in the new bigger SD card, and just copy the files from one to another and recreate the Docker machine by running the same command that you ran originally, and it will just work. Yeah. Teach me to run Node using with Windows. Okay, this is something that we have seen getting more traction recently. So we will try to put more attention into also making guides for running the thing in Windows, because we are aware that it could be challenging for Windows users who may not have already installed, for example, the Linux environment inside Windows 10, which is something that is available today, and it's quite nice. And that's one way of running it, and the other is directly through Docker. But then you are left with the Windows console, which is quite slightly different to use, and some commands may not work. So we can certainly do some sort of getting started guide for explaining all those things, so that at least you can get a setup in Windows that allows you to follow all the rest of tutorials, so that you don't have like an extra barrier to entry. Timelines on possibilities of bridge to other projects such as Tezos, Polkadot, and Cosmos. Yeah, bridge, like the people who are working more on the bridge side. Want to say something about this?
No, we can say that our main goal is to actually finish the design with Ethereum, which currently we don't consider finalized. And once we have the design and implementation ready for Ethereum, we can consider translating that design, and it should be fairly easy to translate that design to other chains like Polkadot or Tezos. So yeah, but the main challenge here was to design something that was decentralized and secure enough, and I think we're happy with the design we have. Now we're waiting for the implementation, but once that's finished, we can consider definitely bridging with other chains.
Okay. Someone who's running 20 nodes. Wow. How do I track them all at once? Is there any dashboard on the pipeline? Yeah, that would be really lovely. That's something that we have discussed a lot about, and there's a lot of interest in building that. But right now, the people that are more interested in building tools are focusing on other parts that have like a slightly higher priority, but that would be a really nice piece of software for node operators to monitor and manage their setups. Yeah, and that's something that also would be probably worth putting some, like the Witnet Foundation putting some resource on. So if someone is interested in working on that, really tell us. And in the meantime, what I shared some one-liner comment on the group. I can send it again later for the people who are running many nodes in the same device. There's one nice way to run the same command in all of them at once, so that you can check if they're running, if they are like checking their balances all at once, and things like that. And also there's this repository in the Witnet GitHub page, which is called Node Operators Tools. And most of what you can find them, well, everything you can find them there is community contributed, which is super exciting. Most of it comes from Bertrand Bertox, and also there are scripts for this same thing, for running running the same command on multiple instances running in the same device, which is also very efficiently managed if you use Docker Compose. That's something that we also want to give more visibility inside the documentation. But already, if you go to the documentation site, that docs.witnet.io, and in the menu you can find a node operators section where you can find some advanced guides to do things that go beyond the basic tutorial. There's a guide there for running the node as a systemd service, like a Linux service, native Linux service, without resorting on Docker, and also a guide on running it using Docker Compose, which is this nice tool that is very similar to Docker, but makes it much more easy to coordinate the deployment of multiple instances of the same image or different services that work together. So that's super nice pro way to operate nodes. So what about Witnet nodes querying a data request, and then the Witnet nodes are not able to get the response in majority, and then one malicious node adds a response that it says is valid, what will happen, and so on. Like, basically, if you have a majority of errors, the request will resolve to an error. Here, majority is defined by the requester. It really depends on your use case, whether you are requiring that 50% or 70% or 99% or 100% of the responses are actual results and not errors. And if that threshold is not met, the request resolves to an error, and you get the error, and that's something you can manage. Inside the protocol, what will happen is any request that resolves to an error actually triggers no reputation redistribution and no slashing. So collaterals are refunded, and reputation don't move for those identities. So that this is basically so that no attacker can like try to abuse that system to produce data requests that unfairly cause collaterals and reputation to flow from one identities to another by creating data requests that are intentionally querying things that will be inconsistent or will give you errors or will give errors to some people and not to another, and so on. Okay, whether static routable IP is needed to run a node. No, you can run a node in a home network without having a public IP. But then, of course, you will not get incoming connections, inbound connections, and that's sort of okay. But then take into account that this protocol is really time bounded. There are many operations that need to happen in a very specific point in time, because when you are resolving data requests, for example, the responses need to come and need to be available to the miners for them to gather them into a block in a specific time frame. So getting better connectivity by basically having incoming connections and having connections directly to the miners and to other miners, I mean, and so on, is always a good idea to maximize the chances that your transactions, your commitments, your blocks, and everything that your node produces arrives to every single node in the network just in time. Would two nodes running in the same device share their reputation? No, they don't compete in any aspect other than sharing the RAM memory and sharing the CPU. So that's totally up to your device. In general, we have this recommendation that you should devote at least one CPU, one thread, and 1 gigabyte of RAM to every node to make sure that they don't compete too much with the other, because what could happen is that both nodes crash at the same time because they run out of resources. If you devote more than this, like 1.5 times this or twice this, like 2 gigabytes of RAM for every node, then you have better chances that it will not crash. This is something that we've seen that it really pays off. Is there any possibility to run nodes on the same IP address but with different ports? Yeah, that's perfectly possible, and that's perfect. That's how we encourage to do it. You can do that. To do that, basically, the second node or any subsequent node needs to be, when you run it, for example, with Docker, you need to make sure that in the port flag that you add when running the Docker run command, you change the port on the left side, not the one on the right side. The one on the right side needs to be 21337 always, because that's a port that is internal to the Docker image. But then the external, you can change it, and as long as you as that port is actually forwarded so that it can receive connections from the outside. That's something that is probably not necessary in some VPS, but always make sure that in your specific setup, in your VPS provider or in your internet provider at home or whatever you are running your nodes, you are actually forwarding the ports. It should work. Then one curious thing is that for nodes that are not running in the default port, to be actually discoverable by other nodes in the network, you need to change the IP and port in the configuration file, in the Witnet toml file that exists inside the Docker container. Right now it's a bit convoluted, but with the next release it will be super easy, because there will be a folder in your file system where you can find the configuration file, and you can enter the IP and the port directly there, and it will just work, and all of your nodes running in the same device will get incoming connections. Okay, I think, okay, okay, I think those are all the questions for now. If we missed some question, please insist in the Telegram group. You know that we are always happy to help. So no problem. So we are entering the final part of the sprint review. This has been a really packed one. Actually, a lot of content, a lot of questions. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Very interesting questions. And in this last part, we want to finish the week. We want to finish the sprints with some good humor, some good vibes. So we are sharing some memes that we found in our channels, and some memes that also have been producing, and so on. So let's have some laughs. So, some memes are really geeky ones, huh? Oh my god, that's me. The guy on the right, that's me. Oh my god. Okay, so that's everything for this sprint. Thanks for watching. Welcome everyone who recently joined. We are really thrilled to be in this particular moment in the Witnet project. It's been a long way until here. We have solved, as I said in my presentation in Cogex, it's like an emotional moment for us, because it took us quite a lot of time and effort to solve a lot of problems that looked unsolvable in the beginning. This is a community that has been growing little by little, and everything is looking great. The software is becoming more and more solid. I think we are in a great position to see a mainnet launch in the coming months, if not weeks. And yeah, thanks everyone for your contributions, for all the effort also in helping other participants of the testnet program and so on. So I really hope that this is as useful and interesting and exciting for you all as it is for us. See you in the next sprint review. In the meanwhile, you know that we are always on Discord, on Telegram. Happy to help, happy to support you, happy to explain, and yeah, thank you very much.